I manage a pub in Melbourne's CBD, and last month an American corporate group came in at 5:15 p.m. on a Wednesday. Their team leader walked up to the bar and asked what our happy hour specials were. I told him, "We don't really do happy hour, drinks are the same price all day." He looked genuinely confused and said, "But it's after work. How do you incentivize people to drink?" I explained that Australians don't need incentives to go to the pub. He thought I was joking. Most people just laugh at this. The few who subscribe start noticing how these cultural logic loops repeat everywhere. I track it full-time so you don't have to. And share the patterns that most miss. He gathered his team and announced loudly that they were going to show us how Americans party after crushing it at work. They ordered rounds of shots and started doing cheers about their quarterly numbers. Everyone else in the pub was quietly having beers and chatting. One of his colleagues asked why the music wasn't louder. I said, "This is a pub, not a nightclub." He said, "In America, work hard means play hard. You guys need to turn up the energy." The entire pub went silent. An old bloke at the corner table said, "Mate, we're just having a beer." The American responded, "Exactly. That's the problem. You need to celebrate your wins." They left after an hour because apparently we weren't fun enough. Said they'd find a real party spot. It was 6:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. I also had an American woman ask if she could expense her drinks because she was networking with locals. I told her I don't care what she expenses. She said in America you can write off happy hour as a business expense if you discuss work. I said that sounds exhausting. She took a photo of her receipt and said she'd submit it anyway. That's not even how Australian tax law works. And that was just Tuesday. I'm a receptionist at a marketing agency in Sydney, and we hired an American account manager on a 2-year visa. First day, she showed up at 7 a.m. Office opens at 9 a.m. She sat in reception for 2 hours working on her laptop, then seemed genuinely surprised when I asked why she came so early. She said, "In America, if you're not early, you're late. I want to show I'm committed." I told her Australians show commitment by doing their job well, not by performing productivity. She laughed like I was making a joke. By week 2, she was sending emails at 10 p.m. and getting frustrated no one responded. She pulled me aside and asked if there was a culture problem with work ethic in the office. I explained that Australians don't check work emails after hours unless it's an emergency. She said, "But what if a client needs something?" I said the client can wait until tomorrow. She looked at me like I'd suggested we abandon all our clients to die. She started scheduling 8 a.m. meetings to maximize productivity. Everyone showed up, but you could feel the resentment. She told our creative director that in America, the early bird gets the worm and we're all birds here. He responded, "Yeah, but the second mouse gets the cheese, so maybe calm down." She didn't understand what that meant. She sent around a motivational email about bringing that American hustle to Australian shores. Our boss had to have a quiet word with her about not insulting everyone's work ethic. Month 3, she took 2 sick days and apologized via email for letting the team down. I told her that's what sick leave is for. She said in America, taking sick days makes you look weak. I said in Australia, coming to work sick makes you look inconsiderate. She seemed genuinely blown away by this concept. She still sends emails after hours. No one responds. I'm a project coordinator in Brisbane, and an American consultant joined our team for a 6-month contract. First morning tea break, he stayed at his desk working. We invited him to the kitchen. He said, "I'll grab something at my desk. Got to keep grinding." Week 1, he ate lunch at his desk every single day. Week 2, he mentioned he was impressed by how many breaks Australians take. Our manager explained that taking breaks is normal and healthy. He said, "In America, lunch is for closers. If you want to succeed, you work through lunch." Our manager said, "In Australia, lunch is for eating lunch." The American guy started bringing protein shakes and meal replacement bars, proudly announcing he could optimize his nutrition without losing productivity. Everyone else went to the cafe down the street and had actual food. He volunteered to work through the weekend to finish a project that wasn't due for 2 weeks. Our manager told him not to. He did it anyway and sent an email Sunday night about how he'd gone above and beyond. Monday morning, our manager told him that working weekends without being asked creates unrealistic expectations for everyone else. He looked utterly confused. If you can spot the absurd patterns in work culture like this, you already think differently. Most creators react. I research. Subscribers know the difference and see it before it happens again. He said, but don't you want employees who are passionate? Our manager said, I want employees who have lives outside of work. Month 4, he complained that Australians don't seem ambitious. I asked what he meant. He said no one talks about career goals or promotions. I explained that Australians just don't make their entire personality about work. He said that explained a lot. It was not a compliment. He went back to America early. Said the work culture here was too relaxed for someone with his drive. We finished the project on time without him. I work at a gym in Perth, and an American member asked if we had 5 a.m. classes. I said our earliest class is 6 a.m. He said, in America, real professionals work out at 5 a.m. so they can be in the office by 7 a.m. That's what separates winners from everyone else. I told him most Australians start work at 9 a.m. and don't feel the need to prove anything by waking up at 4:30 a.m. He said, that's the problem with work-life balance culture. It makes people soft. He started posting on the gym's social media about bringing American fitness intensity to Australia. He'd grunt loudly during workouts and yell motivational phrases at himself. Other members complained. I had to ask him to keep it down. He said, in America, we celebrate effort. You guys are too worried about disturbing people. I said, this is Australia, where we don't make everything about ourselves. He wanted to organize a corporate challenge, where companies compete to see who can work out the most hours per month. I explained that Australians exercise for health, not competition. He said, no wonder Australia isn't as economically dominant as America. You don't have that killer instinct. I told him Australia has universal health care and 5 weeks annual leave. He didn't have a response to that. He canceled his membership after 3 months, said our gym lacked intensity. Everyone was relieved. I'm a bartender in a pub in Adelaide, and an American bloke came in at 6 p.m. on a Friday, loosened his tie dramatically, and announced to everyone, it's Friday! Time to get after it! Nobody reacted. He ordered a beer and kept trying to start conversations by asking people what they do for work. In Australia, we don't really lead with that. One bloke told him he's a teacher. The American said, oh, so what's your real job? The teacher said that is his real job. The American said, no, I mean your career. What are you ambitious about? The teacher said he's ambitious about having a good life. The American laughed and said, classic Australian attitude? In America, we're always grinding, always building something. He started talking about his startup ideas and his hustle mentality. Everyone just wanted to watch the footy. He kept interrupting to ask if anyone wanted to talk business opportunities. Someone eventually told him to shut up so we could watch the game. He seemed offended and said, in America, networking after work is how you get ahead. The bloke next to him said, mate, in Australia, this is just a pub. We're here to drink beer and watch footy, not pitch business ideas. The American said that explained why Australia isn't a real powerhouse economy. 3 people told him to leave. He finished his beer and walked out, muttering about wasted potential. He'd been there for 30 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. I'm a tour guide in Cairns, and I took an American couple on a reef trip. We finished around 4 p.m., and they asked what the evening networking events were. I said there aren't really networking events, there's just pubs and restaurants. The husband said, in America, after work is when real business happens. That's when you make connections that matter. I told him most Australians separate work from personal time pretty strictly. He said, but don't you want to meet successful people? Build your network? I said I meet people by doing things I enjoy, not by treating every social interaction as a business opportunity. His wife said, that's such an Australian thing to say. Americans understand that your network is your net worth. I said most Australians understand that friendships aren't transactional. They spent the whole evening at the hotel bar trying to network with other tourists. They exchanged business cards with everyone and talked about their LinkedIn profiles. Everyone else was on holiday trying to relax. They couldn't understand why people didn't want to talk shop. The husband told me the next day that Australians don't understand professional development. I said Australians understand that we work to live, not live to work. He said that's why America is more successful. I said America also has way more stress-related health problems. He changed the subject. I manage a corporate accommodation building in Melbourne, and an American executive stayed with us for 3 months. He complained constantly that there were no professional networking mixers in the building. I explained that Australians don't really do that. He said, in America, everyone is always connecting, always building relationships that advance their career. I said in Australia, people mostly just want to go home after work. He organized his own networking event in the common room and sent invitations to every tenant. 3 people showed up, all Americans. He was baffled. He said, don't Australians want to be successful? I said Australians have a different definition of success that doesn't revolve entirely around career advancement. He said, that explains the lack of Australian fortune. 500 companies? He started posting on the building's community, board about bringing American ambition to Australia and offering to mentor people on professional growth. Nobody responded. He left multiple notes under doors about networking opportunities. Someone complained to building management. He genuinely couldn't understand why Australians didn't want unsolicited career advice from a stranger. He said, in America, people would be grateful for this kind of mentorship. I said, in Australia, people are grateful when strangers leave them alone. He checked out early and left a bad review saying our building lacked professional networking culture. That was the point. I'm an HR manager in Sydney, and we hosted an American consultant who was teaching a workshop on productivity optimization. Day 1, he opened by saying, I've noticed Australians take a lot of breaks. In America, we believe breaks are for people who don't love their work. You could feel the entire room turn against him immediately. Someone raised their hand and asked if he knew that productivity per hour is actually higher in countries with better work-life balance. He said that's just statistics, not reality. He showed us his daily routine. Wake up at 4:30 a.m., gym by 5 a.m., office by 7 a.m., work through lunch, leave at 7 p.m., personal development until 10 p.m., sleep, repeat. He called it the success formula. Someone asked when he sees his family. He said, weekends are for family. Weekdays are for domination. An Australian manager said, mate, that sounds absolutely miserable. The consultant said, that's the difference between people who succeed and people who settle. Our CEO stood up and said, let me tell you what success looks like in Australia. It's leaving work at 5 p.m. to pick up your kids. It's taking your annual leave without guilt. It's having hobbies that have nothing to do with your career. It's retiring healthy instead of burnt out. The American consultant said, with all due respect, that's participation trophy mentality. In America, we celebrate winners, not work-life balance. The CEO said, right, well, this workshop is over. Thanks for coming. The consultant looked shocked. He said, but I have 3 more days of content about optimizing performance. The CEO said, yeah, and we have 3 more days of not wanting to hear it. He tried to argue that we'd paid for the full week. The CEO said we'd consider it a lesson in knowing when you're not wanted. The consultant packed up and left. He sent an email that night about how Australians fear greatness. We didn't respond. We all went to the pub instead. The thing is, Americans genuinely believe their work culture is something to aspire to. They can't fathom that some of us look at their lifestyle and think it looks exhausting and unfulfilling. They think we're lazy. We think they're missing the point of being alive. And somewhere right now, another American is confidently explaining to a confused Australian that the secret to happiness is working 70 hours a week and calling it passion. This is exactly the kind of reality-bending perspective I map weekly. If you see the world like this, the channel's already yours. Subscribing isn't for me. It's for staying 3 moves ahead of cultural chaos.